G'day folks, and welcome to this week's What Do You Want to Know, where you have sent in some questions for me to answer to do with backyard farming, market gardening, growing your own food. So I'm just going to get stuck straight into it. And the first question comes from Number One Smith, and they ask, how do I battle against the caterpillar? There's three ways. First way is if you've got a small space in your backyard and you're growing, is to just get some bird netting. Make sure that the loop's really a tight loop so no cabbage moth can actually come and lay their eggs on your produce. Secondly is to make a fake deterrent cabbage moth, and all that is pretty much getting an ice cream container lid, cutting it up into the size of a cabbage moth, sticking it on the end of a stick, and then putting it in between your plants, and it just pretty much mimics the cabbage moth. So they're very territorial, so if they see something that's already landed on a plant, they'll go over to the next plant or hopefully over to your next door neighbours. Thirdly, which is a really good one, is the landcress, and you literally just interplant that with your plant, and the landcress actually has a toxin inside the leaves. So whenever the cabbage moths lay this egg, they'll actually prefer to lay their egg on the landcress over any other plant. So once they lay their eggs, obviously once a caterpillar emerges, they'll take a bite out of the plant. The toxin inside the plant will actually kill them. So there's three ways. I've made a couple of videos on it previously, so I'll link them below that go in a bit more in depth. So hopefully that helps you answer your question there. All right, let's move on to the next one. Next question comes from Adventures of E and J, and their question has to do with growing lettuces from seed. They're having some issues and not getting great results. Alright, so there's a few things with growing from seed. First thing, most important I find, is your propagating mix or your seed raising mix. I've made a video of that. I'll link it below, check that out. Secondly, lettuces love moisture to actually germinate and to actually get nice and strong. So one tip that you can do is whenever you've got your seed tray or whatever you're planting the seeds into, is for the first little while is actually cover them, so water them and then cover them with some cling wrap or glad wrap on top. And what that does, it works as almost like a little mini greenhouse. So it'll actually keep the condensation and moisture in around the plant. Also pop them in a nice sunny spot or a warm spot. And if you actually want to trick them a little bit more, you can actually get a hot water bottle and sit the tray on top of that. So you're almost mimicking summer where the soil's a lot warmer. So it lets the seed to germinate a lot quicker and what you want to do there. So those three tips are probably your best thing to get your lettuce going again. So let us know how you go. Alright, so the next question comes from Just Mars 77, a local girl up in Sunbury. I think it's a girl, didn't even really check, just guessing Just Mars. Their question is, what's the best fruit trees for Sunbury? I've got apples, I've got lemons, I've got limes, we've got olives, oranges. What else do we have? There's cherries, apricots. What else is there? Apricots, cherries, nectarines. So they're all great for Sunbury area. Just make sure you get some really good root stock from the start, and yeah, get planting. Alright, so the next question comes from an avid gardener, Justin Phillips, and their question is, what socks do I wear when farming? Pretty simple, Bonds, best socks out there. No, just joking, Justin's a good friend of mine, he's taking the piss out of me. I shot a Bonds commercial there the other week with Pat Rafter, tennis legend, and I think he's just having a bit of a dig at me. So yeah, if you want to check out the me and Pat Rafter doing an ad together, I'll link that below as well. Alright, next question. It comes from Compost Worm 5, and they ask about my overhead watering system. So I'll show you one here. So I've just got the overhead sprinkler system there. And their question almost asks pretty much about the benefits of it. They use drip. Personally, I like the overheads. In their question, they actually ask, is it because it mimics rain? Yeah, I reckon it is. You know, you're obviously doing, Mother Nature. They don't have, pinpoint little drippers watering all the plants and all the vegetation and everything else. The other thing with overhead is that it keeps the soil, the whole soil, nice and moist and viable. Where I find with the drippers, it's literally just doing around the root system and the base of the plant. but interplanting and everything around it isn't getting watered, and that soil can dry out, is what I find personally. But each to their own. A lot of people swear by drippers, but just personally I like the overhead. You get a better coverage of water, and for me, I get great results, so I can't complain. So hopefully that helps. This question comes from Whole Body Conditioning, and they're actually asking, they've got some avocado trees growing out of their compost pile, and they're asking me, do they need to move them in for the winter into a warmer spot, and will they actually get fruit from them growing here in Melbourne? I'm not that, to be honest, that great with avocados. I've never grown them. I think they really do need a more warmer and dry climate. So the best thing to do is probably jump on to an actual local grower. I know if you head up more north, sort of up towards sort of the, Echuca, Moama, up around that district, there's a lot of, I think it's Burnham avocados are a really good one. Maybe jump on their Instagram account to shoot them a question and ask them. I just don't know, so I'd just be lying to you if I tried to pass it off as I did. So sorry about that, can't help you. Okay, so next question comes from Amy Marsh 3. She's actually a really good friend of my wife's, and I forgot to answer this question about a year ago, so I'm going to answer it now. Her question had to do with growing snow peas. Whenever she tries to grow snow peas from seedlings, they just always die, but every other vegetable that she grows does fine. So what you'll probably find is, what I would be doing to change it is actually grow the snow peas from seed instead of just going out and buying a commercially grown seedling. Chuck it in the ground. Make sure for the first little while that you're giving it good consistent watering. Space them about 5 centimeters apart. And then once they shoot up and they're yay tall, you can actually start to string them up, and then they'll actually grow up a trellis or whatever you've got set up at home. So best thing to do, grow them from seed. Make sure you get an organic seed. They're the best, they're the greatest, they haven't been tampered with, and you'll just do great with them. Let us know how you go. Thanks, Amy. Alright, so the last question comes from Jared Dimmick, an old schoolmate of mine. His question is, he struggles to grow anything from seed on his urban block. He doesn't have a greenhouse or anything like that. So I'm going to revert this one back to my first question, or one of the first questions to do with growing seeds for lettuce and stuff like that. It all comes down to having a great seed raising mix or propagation mix. So Jared, make sure you check out my video below on how to make your own seed raising mix. It's the best way to go about it, depending on what you want to grow. Obviously we're in autumn, so if you want to be starting any seeds, it's all going to be your leafy greens, sort of spring onions, silver beet, kale. You can even start your broccolis or cauliflowers in seeds. But yeah, best bet, get them in there. As I said, little trick to create a little mini greenhouse is just put some cling wrap over the top of them once they've been watered. That'll create condensation and moisture inside it, keeping it nice and moist throughout the day. And then once that they start to sprout up, you just take the plastic off and then they should be fine. So that's it, folks. Hope you enjoyed this segment of What Do You Want to Know. I'll be doing another one in a week. So if you've got any more questions or anything you can think of, link them down below, pop your question down there, and we'll see you next time. Have a great one.